تبسم 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 تبسم
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن والاه. قال الله تعالى في القرآن المجيد: وأحسنوا إن الله يحب المحسنين. قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم: إن الله رفيق يحب الرفق في الأمر كله، أو كما قال. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful, all praise is due to our Creator, our Cherisher, our Nourisher, and our Sustainer. We bear witness there's none worthy of worship but Allah. We bear witness we believe in all the prophets who came in the great line of divine, and we bear witness that Prophet Muhammad ibn Abdullah, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa ashabihi wa sallam, is the final of all the emissaries of Allah. Respected elders, brothers and sisters, respected youth, I greet you with the Islamic universal greeting of peace. May the peace, the mercy and the blessings of Allah be upon each and every one on this auspicious time of Jum'ah in this beautiful house of Allah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. The deen of Islam, or the Islamic way of life, is a comprehensive way of life. A way of life, dinun shamilun, that addresses every dimension of human existence, whether it be the spiritual level, personal level, social level, political level. So it's a dinun kamilun as well as dinun shamilun, comprehensive and complete, and brought to conclusion by the mission of the messenger who was the Khatam al-Nabiyyin, the final messenger of Allah. That messenger who conveyed a well-preserved revelation, a revelation which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself has promised its preservation. Inna nahnu nazzalna dhikr wa inna lahu lahafidhun. And that preserved revelation is a source of guidance for all humanity. So a comprehensive way of life, a complete way of life, brought to conclusion and fruition by the final messenger, the Khatam al-Nabiyyin, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, who conveyed not only by means of through revelation and oral communication, but by preservation of those values through his behavior and what we refer to as his sunnah, those things that describe how he did, what he said, and of course what he agreed and disagreed on. And that is well preserved for us as a tradition as a whole, and the revelation preserved in the Quran, and all of this combined as a guidance for all of humanity. And therefore it's very significant for Muslims and people of faith in particular to fully appreciate Islam. We need to understand that Islam is more than mere ideology. It's more than only belief, as fundamental as belief in itself is. It's far more than robotic rituals. Indeed, a comprehensive way of life. A way of life that was manifested by the Uswatun Hasanah, an ideal exemplar, a holistic model of excellence, and a life well known and well preserved and well recorded and well documented in the full bloom of history. We, as part of the human family, are part of the Ummah of the Rasul, are a fraternity. We're all part of one humanity. We come from one essence, and in that way we're part of the human family. And therefore, universally, each human being is a brother or a sister, as a fellow human being to other human beings. At the same time, there is a fraternity or ukhuwah, which refers to that bond of faith, إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةً. That all of those who prescribe to the principles of Tawheed and to the abiding mission of the Rasul and to the precepts of the Quran. These are considered as part of the ummah, and this ummah, inna hadhihi ummatukum ummatan wahida. Within that human family, there is the fraternity of believers. And this fraternity of believers is guided by principles laid down in the Quran and the Sunnah. And it deals with our relationship with the Creator and with creation. What we broadly term as huququllah and huququl ibad. And I beg your indulgence in a slightly different understanding of that, as some of our teachers taught us. Huququllah, as we always say, are those that we individually owe to the Creator as far as prayer is concerned, and fasting and pilgrimage and so on, at an individual level with our Creator. And then there's huququl ibad, which some term as the rights we owe to the creation of the Creator, but we would rather say the rights we owe to Allah through our engagement with the creation of the Creator. So either way, we are accountable to Allah. In our relationship with the world, however, we need to ask ourselves a question. You see, the problem is, there are many people who are religious. When I say religious there, I mean ritualistic religious. They'll be very concerned and very precise about their prayer and how they pray and all of those things which are fundamentally important. But that does not reflect in their character. They'll be the best musallis, yet the worst husbands. They'll be the best readers, but not the best payers of their staff. There'll be those who will do the salah exactly according to the sunnah, and at the same time will not have a smile on their face or kindness in their heart. Yet they would believe that they are following the sunnah in some way. Almost a dichotomy. At times it's contradictory. You pray like the Prophet, but nothing else of yours is like the Prophet. Nor your attitude, nor your justice, nor your demeanor, nor your compassion. Nothing prophetic about that. But I am following the sunnah. So in our relationship with the world, we need to ask ourselves, what is the dominant attitude that we display? If someone were to describe me, my attitude, if they would say one word, what would they say? What would you say? When we are passionate about something, what emotion comes to the fore? There are many people you find, when they speak about religion, it's argumentation. It's about anger. It's about how wrong other people are, or how deviant other people are in their belief. It's almost as if the discourse about religion is a discourse of anger, a discourse, a rhetoric of rage. When we are passionate about something, what emotion comes to the fore? When you speak about religion, about your deen, what passion is? What comes forth? What comes to the fore? Is it love? Do other Muslims who agree with you or disagree with you, when they engage you, do they see an attitude of love? Because attitudes are reflections of yourself in the mirror of life. Whatever you may think of yourself, the attitude you display is a reflection of yourself in the mirror of life. Is it how you assume you are, or how you think others may perceive you, is how others perceive you in reality and what you reflect. So when we are passionate about something, what emotion comes to the fore? Is it love? Is it hate? Is it anger? Is it revenge? Is it compassion? Is it confrontation? Because we beget what we portray. You attract what you give. The vibe and the ambiance you create sets the tone and the mood for what the engagement would be. If you are hostile, you beget hostility. If you are disrespectful, you beget disrespectfulness. If you are confrontational, by the very nature of confrontation, you are at war with the others. So since we beget what we portray, and since our attitudes are reflections of ourselves in the mirror of life, what do we reflect? What do we reflect? If we as Muslims are supposed to imbue ourselves with the qualities and the attitudes and the characteristics of the divine, as the Rasul said, تَخَلَّقُوا بِأَخْلَاقِ اللَّهِ, imbue yourself with the qualities of the divine. The most dominant quality of Allah is compassion and mercy. Is that the most dominant attitude or quality that we display? We know Allah is Rahman ar-Rahim, Rasul is Rahmatan lil Alameen, Quran is Shifa'a wa Huda wa Rahmah. We are Ruhama'u baynahum, supposed to be, is Rahmah, the revealer, the messenger, the message is Rahmah. What do you assume the quality, fundamental quality of a believer ought to be? Is it there? Is it even among Muslim people? Never mind towards the rest of the world. What kind of image is the first thing that comes to mind when thinking of Muslims worldwide? What is the image that people portray of us? Do they have sufficient, even if they give negative images of us, is there sufficient coverage for them to give an impression that we are negative, that we are violent, that we are hateful, that we are vengeful, that we are confrontational? Is there sufficient of that? Even if we blame them in the news and how they portray us, is there sufficient evidence to show that we are vengeful and hateful? The first and lasting impression of a believer ought to be one of compassion, one of mercy. At-Tabrani documents in a hadith, Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, "Lan tu'minu hatta tarahamu." You can never be a believer unless you are mutually compassionate towards one another. And someone said, "Ya Rasulullah, kulluna rahimun." All of us are compassionate. He said, "Innahu laysa birahmah ahadukum sahibahu walakinnaha rahmatul amma." He said, it's not only to be nice to those who are good to you or are close to you or are friends to you, is to have the capacity for compassion for everyone in general. That is why a very famous incident in the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, of the lady who embraced Islam and the family was not Muslim. And whenever she visited them, they were harsh towards her, abusive towards her. And then they were to visit her one day, and she went to Rasulullah and said, "Ya Rasulullah, my family, they are very harsh to me due to my faith. They haven't accepted the fact that I am Muslim. They are nasty to me when I visit them, and now they are coming to visit me. Shall I do to them the way they do to me? Tit for tat. Shall I do to them what they do to me?" And the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, hadith documented by Imam al-Tirmidhi, "La takunu imma'atan yaquluna in ahsana an-nasu ahsanna wa in zalamu zalamna." Don't be silly, O lady. Don't say, if people are good to me, I'll be good to them, and if they wrong me, I will wrong them. وَلَكِنْ وَطِّنُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ إِنْ أَحْسَنَ النَّاسِ أَن تُحْسِنُوا وَإِنْ أَسَاءُوا فَلَا تَظْلِمُوا. Condition yourself that if people are good to you, you are good to them, and if they are not good to you, you are still good to them. The nature of a believer is the vicegerent of Allah on earth. All human beings are potential Khalifatullah fil ard, vicegerents of Allah on earth. And if Allah's dominant characteristic is that of mercy, it doesn't mean you can't punish, it doesn't mean you can't fight. It doesn't mean that, of course not. You fight for justice, it's part of mercy. If you cannot stand up for justice, then you're merciful. That means you don't care about those who are oppressed. It's your compassion that rises you to stand up against injustice. Muslims care and must care, for that is their mission on earth. Both the Quran and Hadith literature abound with statements stressing the utmost importance of caring for others. One of the earliest chapters that was revealed, Surah Al-Duha, where the Rasul was ostracized. In fact, the surah was revealed after a period of anxiety and depression the Prophet went through, because the people ostracized him. And he felt very depressed and he was crying. And in that mood, after a few months of non-revelation, Allah revealed this. وَالضُّحَى وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا سَجَى مَا وَدَّعَكَ رَبُّكَ وَمَا قَلَى وَلَلْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ لَكَ مِنَ الْأُولَى وَلَسَوْفَ يُعْطِيكَ رَبُّكَ فَتَرْضَى. By the morning light and the night when it's still, your Lord has not forsaken you nor forgotten you. What is to come will be better than what has gone before. And soon will you get that which will bring pleasure to you. And then it went on. أَلَمْ يَجِدْكَ يَتِيمًا فَآوَى. And it's a lesson to us, to remind us that the Prophet himself was in all those conditions of desperation. So by telling us what to do and telling the Prophet what to do, Allah reminds us about our attitude, because the Prophet was in that condition. أَلَمْ يَجِدْكَ يَتِيمًا فَآوَى. O Rasul, whom you all claim to follow, Allah tells him and through him to us, don't you forget that you too were an orphan. Therefore, repulse not the orphan with harshness. That's why any believer, when he sees an orphan, he sees almost a characteristic of the condition of the Prophet. He cannot but separate the idea. Like you see a minaret, you see a mosque, you see an orphan, you ought to think the Prophet was once an orphan. أَلَمْ يَجِدْكَ يَتِيمًا فَآوَى وَوَجَدَكَ ضَالًّا فَهَدَى. We found you in need of guidance. Prophets are never misguided. But you found you in need of guidance, and we granted you the absolute guidance and made you a guide for humanity. وَجَدَكَ عَائِلًا فَأَغْنَى. We found you destitute, in need, and we made you self-sufficient. Then it goes on. It doesn't say only that. It goes on to give an injunction. فَأَمَّا الْيَتِيمَ فَلَا تَقْهَرْ. Therefore, all of you, O Rasul, yourself, and all of us who receive the revelation, don't repulse the orphan with harshness. وَأَمَّا السَّائِلَ فَلَا تَنْهَرْ. And when somebody asks and you are in a position to help, don't turn them away unattended. وَأَمَّا بِنِعْمَةِ رَبِّكَ فَحَدِّثْ. Regarding the favors and bounties of Allah, rejoice and celebrate those things, the favors of Allah. Now this surah was revealed at a time when the Rasul was depressed. Why was he depressed? His own relatives and so on ostracized him. There was a period of no revelation for some months, and they said, Allah forgot you. وَدَّعَكَ رَبُّكَ. Allah has forgotten you, has forsaken you. So Allah reveals this. But in that revelation, in that destitute position, when Muslims were not even established, there was no real masjid, nothing going on. They could not pray in public. In that condition, when Muslims had nothing, not even a house of worship, Allah emphasizes the need to take care of the orphans. You yourself, the Rasul himself is destitute. But Allah in that moment of destitution reminds him that don't forget those who are destitute and needy. Another surah, Al-Ma'un. Woe unto those who misrepresent the faith, who belie the faith. Those who repulse the orphan with harshness. وَلَا يَحُضُّ عَلَىٰ طَعَامِ الْمِسْكِينِ. And encourage not the feeding of the poor. If you can feed, good. If you can't, encourage the feeding of the poor. فَوَيْلٌ لِلْمُصَلِّينَ. Woe unto those who are worshipping, not those who are not worshipping. Woe to those who are worshipping. الَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنْ صَلَاتِهِمْ سَاهُونَ. Those who are unmindful of the dimensions of their worship. الَّذِينَ هُمْ يُرَاءُونَ. Those who do things to be seen by people, to be noticed. وَيَمْنَعُونَ الْمَاعُونَ. Despite praying, despite being seen by people to be doing the good things. وَيَمْنَعُونَ الْمَاعُونَ. Woe unto them. Why? Because they forget to meet the need of the neighbor. Al-Ma'un means the basic needs. Sugar, water, clothing for the neighbor. You don't help the neighbor in their basic needs. Woe unto those who are worshipping, not those who are not worshipping. Those who are worshipping. فَوَيْلٌ لِلْمُصَلِّينَ. Those who are unmindful of the dimensions and the spirit of worship. Those who do things to be noticed by people, but who refuse to help the need of the neighbor. Now this surah was revealed early in Mecca, but in Medina where the Muslims were established, they had hardly food to eat. They had hardly homes to stay. Some were tortured, some were killed. So the idea that these kind of injunctions were put at a time when Muslims themselves were destitute, how fundamentally important the idea of caring for others was, when they themselves were unable really to care for themselves. So in other words, an integral part of the philosophy of Islam, of the deen of Islam, of the comprehensive nature of Islam is the notion of care. And that's why the Rasulullah said, he said, Inna Allah rafiqun. Allah himself is kind. If we must imbue within ourselves the characteristics of the divine, Rasul didn't say be kind. He said, Inna Allah rafiqun. Allah is kind. One of the characteristics and the qualities of the divine is kindness. يُحِبُّ الرِّفْقَ فِي الْأَمْرِ كُلِّهِ. It's an authentic tradition by all schools of thought. All schools of thought accept this as an authentic. All schools of thought. So he said, Allah himself is kind, and he loves kindness in everything. Not Allah loves kindness. Say, يحب الرفق. He said, إن الله رفيق يحب الرفق في الأمر كله. Allah loves kindness in everything that you do. This indicates the significance of the notion, of the attitude, of the quality of kindness. And though kindness may not seem to be appreciated always, because sometimes, you see, you don't do a thing to be appreciated. You do because it's the right thing to do. See, you don't do it because somebody does it back to you. You do it because it's the right thing to do. Because if you do something purely for reward, though we believe in reward, then you're doing it for the reward, not for Allah, not for the purpose. If I give you something back, no problem. But if I only do it for you, if I say I'll give you a donation, but only if you put my name in the paper, no problem if you put my name in paper. But otherwise I won't give it to you, then you're not giving it for giving, you're giving it for the advertising. No, I'm not saying you mustn't do it, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying to you, what is your purpose of giving? Is the giving for the giving? And you may get publicity, which is very good, or you're giving because of that, because then that's your reward. إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ وَإِنَّمَا لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مَا نَوَىٰ. Actions are by intention, and for each one what he intended. If I intended for publicity, that's my reward. Allah doesn't owe me anything. I already got what I wanted. Why do you do what you do? Do it because it's the right thing to do. So though kindness may not always seem to be appreciated, it does indeed have an impact every time you display kindness. And the less it may seem to be appreciated, maybe perhaps the more it is required and needed. And kindness is not something that's depleted. Kindness is not something that's depleted. It's like love. It's like compassion. The more you share, like knowledge, all the positive things in life, the more you share, the more you have. If I have money, if I give you 50% of 100 rand, you have 50 rand, I have 50 rand. And I'm not part easily with money because I don't want to share. Because if I share, it becomes half. But joy, love, compassion, the more you give, you still have the same amount left. It doesn't become depleted. In fact, it becomes multiplied. Kindness does not mean allowing others to take advantage of you. Kindness means doing what you know is right, doing what you know is best, and creating substantial, lasting value for yourself and for those around you. For Allah does not overlook kindness. Allah notices it. For Wallahu yuhibbul muhsineen. Allah loves those who are kind. You see, our function in life, we are so caught up earning a living that we forget to live. We are so busy in our religiosity, in arguing and debating about theology, that the principles and values of compassion and love are very often lost, even among those who are supposed to be religious. Our function in life is not merely to have and to hold, but to give and to serve. To get and never to forget what we got. And that's why the notion in Islam, Wallahu fi auni al-abd, ma dama al-abdu fi auni akhi. Allah is at the assistance of that person as long as that person is at the assistance of people. This is what it is. Maulana Altaf Hussain Hali captured it very beautifully in his Musaddas. He wrote in Urdu, Dard dil ke waaste paida kiya insaan ko. Dard dil ke waaste. पैदा किया इंसान को वरना ताअत के लिए कुछ कम नती करो बयान. It's for the care and love of one another that Allah made you. If you think Allah made you purely for ruku and sujood, He's got millions of angels doing that all the time and nothing else. So we make ruku, we make sujood, which are fundamental to our faith and our prayer and our worship, but it's compassion. Khairun nas anfa'um linnas. Someone said, Ya Rasulullah, I want to be the best of people. How can I be the best of people? He said, Kun nafi'an linnas. Be of benefit to people. Someone came to Rasulullah, Ya Rasulullah, show me a deed or an action, or if I do something that I'll be guaranteed paradise. دلني بعمل إذا عملت به دخلت به الجنة. Say something I must do. If I do it, I'm going to paradise for sure. He said, كن محسنا, be a doer of good. He said, Ya Rasulullah, كيف أعلم أني محسن? But Rasulullah, how will I know? How will I know if I'm a muhsin? How will I know? He said, سل جيرانك, ask your neighbors, ask those who are around you. فإن قالوا إنك محسن فأنت محسن. If your neighbor considers you good, Allah will accept you as good. दर्द दिल के वास्ते पैदा किया इंसान को. For the love of one another, Allah made you. वरना ताअत के लिए कुछ कम नती करो बयान. It's ironic that despite this notion of compassion, this idea of loving for others, Allah revealed a verse in Surah Hujurat. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed and says, about believers. And they said, Ya Rasulullah, we are people of faith. What must we do to manifest our faith? And the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, أفضل الإيمان أن تحب للناس ما تحب لنفسك. To love and care for humanity what you care for yourself. So love and compassion are absolutely essential components of the character of faithful believer. That's why the Rasul said, authentic hadith, مَنْ لَا يَرْحَمْ لَا يُرْحَمْ. The one who's not compassionate and merciful will not be shown mercy and compassion. And therefore, when you look back at life eventually, inshallah, may Allah grant long life. So, when we eventually look back at life, the moments we will cherish the most will always be those things that we have done in the spirit of compassion. Because your bank balance won't count. They're going to leave behind and people may argue and debate about whose share it is. But it's those moments of compassion, those incidences that you remember that make life meaningful, that made life purposeful. It's unremembered acts, but acts of kindness and compassion and of actions of love. You see, the worst disease of today, of this age and period, is that people feel uncared for. People feel unloved. There's so much hurt in this world, despite so much capacity for compassion and kindness. So many governments are spending so much money on warfare than they're spending on peace and food. If America spends the amount they spend, forget in America, just for the troops all over the world, according to American statistics, what they spend for one day for the armed forces in other parts of the world where they occupy land, like in Iraq and everywhere else, if they were to take one day's pay, they can feed the entire world population that is going hungry for food for the whole year. One day's. Something is seriously wrong with our humanity. How civilized are we? That we can create bombs that can kill people but not buildings. Smart bombs. It's called smart bombs. That's how smart we've become. We've lost our sense of humanity. No kindness, there's no humanity. That's why the Rasul said, Al-Hubbu Asasi. Love is the foundation of my existence. Some of us have even lost that amongst ourselves. The worst disease of this time, of this age, is people feeling unloved. There's so much hurt in this world, despite the capacity for so much compassion. In helping others, in caring for others, we enhance ourselves. For when somebody lights a candle, you can't help but dispel the darkness, even for yourself. And there are none who stand so tall. There are none who stand so tall as those who bend down to help those who are in need. We must feel good doing good. Don't just do good for reward. Reward we believe in. Sayyidina Ali karramallahu wajh said, مَنْ يَعْبُدُ اللَّهَ رَغَبَةً فَتِلْكَ عِبَادَ التُّجَّارِ. If you worship Allah purely for reward, then that's a worship of a businessman. If you worship Allah purely for, we believe in reward, it's aqidah. Of course we believe in reward. But if it's purely for reward, then it's a worship of a businessman. It requires much more than that. Because we are of those, إِذَا سَرَّتْكَ حَسَنَتُكَ وَسَأَتْكَ سَيِّئَتُكَ فَأَنْتَ مُؤْمِنٌ. If doing good pleases you, you don't do good to feel good, you feel good doing good. Don't just do good, it's okay, I fed some people now in Kailicha, now the whole year I'm not going anywhere, I did very much good. No, it's not a chore. Feel good doing good. Don't do good to take a whole year break now. MashaAllah, I did that, now I can sit back, I feel good about it. Feel good doing the good. Don't do good to feel good. Let's live and act with kindness, and the value of each action will become multiplied many times over. If we live with kindness, we live with the power to make a difference to those around us. You see, there's nothing more comforting, nothing more gratifying for a conscientious soul than to know that through a kind word, a helpful act, a cheerful smile, that you've made someone's burden a little lighter, someone's day a little brighter, someone's situation a little more pleasant. Kindness is indeed a most noble quality, and that is why it is the characteristic of the divine. Inna Allah rafiqun. Allah himself is kind. Yuhibbu rifqa fil amri kulli. He loves kindness in everything. May we imbibe the value and characteristic of kindness in our attitude, in our behavior, and in our relations. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
تبسم تبسم وخل الهموم وخل الغموم وخل الضجر.